council meeting. We're going to start off the meeting tonight and try to finish up our process document. We've got a few little changes. I think most of the stuff's been hammered out, hopefully, but we'll go through it and try to get those final changes. And then we have Joe Griffin tonight that's going to talk to us a little bit about water quality in Silverbow Creek. With that, oh, we do have...
I was going to ask Joe if he got a haircut for his presentation.
Just time for the annual haircut.
It's that time of year, right?
You paid too much.
I think Carol had one change to the notes, or the notes from last meeting.
Yes, I do. Emmett called my attention. He did come to the last meeting, so that will be corrected. And I know in the past we've been inconsistent. Sometimes you've gotten Pat's handwritten notes, but we will do the more regular notes. One thing that we have relied on, though, is since the Park Fork Watershed Education Program is here taping every meeting at Elizabeth's request, we do keep the notes very brief, and if you want something different, you need to tell us. But since it's all available on tape, we will always record public comment and action, but if it's just an informational meeting, we do less so.
Okay. And I think Carol is going to start it off tonight with a little introduction of some changes to the expedited action section. That was really the only substantial changes that we had talked about before. And then the format will be, we'll just kind of go through and see if anybody else has changes that they'd like to have made to the document. And then hopefully if there's no substantial changes tonight and we can come to an agreement, we can take a vote on this document tonight. There will be public comment before the vote. So if the public has some comments that they would like to make, there'll be an opportunity after we kind of discuss these changes that are to be made.
Okay. All right. So for the audience, we have extra copies of the full packets. So if you just raise your hand, Greg will hand them out. And if there's any of the board members. And I told Elizabeth, I'm going to come, Elizabeth, I'm just going to come up here.
Yeah, I think that's great. You want to
Grab a chair.
you can come right to the table there.
All right, so I don't have my back to you, and you don't have your backs to me, so hopefully this works. This should be fairly quick. I asked Elizabeth's permission not to walk you through all the parts of this document as we've done in past meetings, and lucky for you, she said yes, so you can bring up any of your questions. But what I'm going to hit is what was in the cover letter as some suggested changes that more came as a result of the time lapse. We gave you these changes in here as a result of your input in November 15th. And we gave you these changes, these versions at your last meeting, and again, because we got lost over the holidays. So, but things have happened where we're just looking back, and one of them was the process for expediting actions. Elizabeth got 2 informal requests, and it kind of came from discussions that came before this council about shouldn't there be an exception process, and we got really a lot into that language. And what I warned about, and Pat as well, is that we don't want to start a grants process. That's not the process that this group is involved in. And that if you want to consider something for a decision well in advance of when you're going to do your plan, it ought to be for something very extraordinary and time critical. And that became even more evident as you expedited your schedule and moved it up. You're going to have what your schedule says is in the Trustee Restoration Council, a draft restoration plan in their hands in August. So it's tight. There should be very limited situations that warrant you having to make a decision about a project ahead of considering them all together. So in looking at the section, we offered you revised language to that section. It was in the attachment to my cover letter. And it makes it clear, it clarifies that what's being expedited is your funding recommendation and a decision by the governor. And it also says these need to be important time-critical projects. And what I also offered in the cover letter, because the requests were starting to come in, is sort of, and this was a question Elizabeth had, what's the procedure we're going to follow with these if we do get these? So that is the last page of my attachment to the cover letter was a proposed procedure if you do find that you're getting these requests, how to handle them. So what you have before you is suggested replacement language to the text. That in my mind is a lot cleaner, but the biggest change is that it makes it clear that if you're going to do some expedited decision making for one thing or a couple things, outside of looking at the whole universe of the options, it ought to be for something special. And second, then a procedure that you'll follow. The procedure is just, you don't have to formally adopt it in the process plan. The language is as a proposed change to the process plan. Elizabeth, do you want me to review the steps at all? Or,
I guess I'd like to stop right here and just make sure that all of the council members have had a chance to review that text change. Did everyone get a chance to read through that? Does anybody have any issues with the way that language reads now as compared to what it was before?
That's pretty good, I thought.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was kind of on board with that. And then I think we could just go through the review process, okay, quickly and just make sure that nobody has any issues with that. This language won't actually be in the document. This is just going to be a procedure.
how you will follow if you get such requests.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So this second page where it says suggested review process won't
Right.
actually be in the guidance document, but will just be our policy on how we will handle any of these projects that come in as they come in. Okay.
So the first one is the folks interested in these, whether it be a BNRC member or another member of the public, government entity, they would complete the attached form, which gives general project information. And we've kept that very, very basic information. They would have to address why the project is time critical, short description of the project, its location, its benefits, the time frame. But probably the most critical part is for them to indicate why does it deserve to go ahead of the pack. Okay? So that's the form. And then that form, you all would consider it at a meeting. There would be public input at the meeting where you can decide if you'd like to get the full proposal based on whether, first we'll tell you whether we think it meets the legal threshold, and then second, whether you think it meets the importance, time critical nature. If you do, then whoever's working that project, shepherding it, would put together a detailed proposal. It would be posted on our website. We would start a 30-day public comment period. A 30-day public comment period is what the minimum are the Superfund regulations require for restoration plans. Then we would give you our evaluation of the project. You would be able to consider that, the public comment, when you decide whether you want to advance it to the Trustee Restoration Council and the Governor for a funding decision. So you'd have public input before you make a decision on that. There is the last sentence is actually deleted. It was a mistake. I had shared this draft process with her. She said, could we cut down on the process? And so we eliminated an additional public comment period there. So that last sentence is actually supposed to be deleted. The public comment would come when the application is submitted. It goes up on our website. We send out a notice, and you would get it before you make your decisions. But there would not be subsequent public comment afterwards. There'll always be public comment at any meeting, though, on any of the decisions.
Elizabeth?
Mm-hmm.
And regardless, if 30 days is the minimum, I would think that we could